Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Bad Lit Friends, the writing podcast that still barely knows what it's doing. I am your host, Meagan Thompson-Mann, and this is my co-host.
Hi, I'm Kirk Rafferty.
And this week we are talking about shelved novels, aka trunk novels, aka all of the books that live in your boneyard. And
some of them not even really qualifying to be called novels.
No, some of them are vague attempts and hand wavings at novels. Some of them are, merely ideas.
By about page 4, I'm going, this one.
So, I was just saying to Kirk right before we started our last episode about first pages in books. I really, patting myself on the back, I thought that was actually very good. And then Kirk tells me this morning as it's about to post, oh yeah, by the way.
Another podcast.
Another much more storied podcast about writing and publishing.
Yes. A podcast that could just eat us for breakfast.
Yes. It's with the fabled Cece Lyra, of whom we have spoken many times, is a co-host.
It's the shit they don't tell you about writing podcast. If you're not listening to that podcast, you should be listening to that podcast.
I would say stop listening to us. Yes, but after ours, listen to us. Yeah, because then you can go, from the ridiculous to the sublime, as opposed to the other way.
Right.
But maybe we're all tapping into the great universal subconscious.
That's right.
Maybe this is everybody's still like, we're at the beginning of the year. But the reality is we are actually, by the time this episode drops, we're going to be at the end almost of February, which is terrifying. Especially because I had originally said that I'd be done with book 2 by this time. If I am done by the end of March, I'll be winning everything, and someone will snap up this novel because it is apparently blessed. This is not going to happen. So, speaking of writing updates, how is your writing this week?
My writing is going really well. I took a kind of a hard right turn on the novel that I was writing. It was one genre, and I was talking with my daughter, Rylan, friend of the show, and former producer. Rylan said, I won't recount the entire conversation because it was a weird, twisty conversation. But the upshot of this is I am now writing a horror novel.
Oh, my God. Oh, was it, Kirk, was it that email, the spam email we got to badlitfriends@gmail.com that said, I love your horror writing? Was that what spurred you on?
I wish I could say that a spammer convinced me to take a hard right turn on genre. The book that I was so I wasn't that far into that book anyway, but I think Rylan had said something like, because she's writing horror. That's her genre.
Yeah.
That's her thing. And she's like, wouldn't it be cool if this happened? And I was like, oh my God, that's such a good idea. And but I would have to just overhaul everything. Now, fortunately, I've been able to salvage a lot of it. And if I ever get to the point, speaking of unfinished novels, if I get down the road and I decide this really is not a horror, it's actually not a hard switch to flip back.
Mm-hmm.
Because it turns out I was able to salvage about 25% of what I'd written so far anyway. And so, look at that. I'm writing a horror novel now.
Oh my God.
So I'm just kind of slipping right into this thing. It's a lot of fun. I am also writing a looser outline than I have in the past. And so I'm not full on pantser yet. I'm still got my pants off, but you don't want to know that. How's your writing going, Meagan?
So I took advantage of the 3-day weekend and I wrote a metric shit ton, completed a chapter, completed all the smut. Thank you very much.
Right on.
Yes.
The important bits.
Very important bits. And
get giddy.
Yeah. Whew. But I did draw, the nylon curtain across at some point and was like, the vapors, it was too much. But I started the next chapter. After this one, I've got 3 more chapters to go and then I'm done. Getting close.
Awesome.
Yeah, getting very close, desperately trying not to introduce new characters since I have thought about this as being a 3-book arc with a standalone first novel. Thank you very much. If there are other characters, I could easily put them into book 2. So that's going quite well. Identified some more agents to query. Thank you very much to Anne, of course, friend of the show, who has been on before and who I'm going to harass to be my replacement host. And if you're listening now, I am going to harass you to be my replacement host while I am doing wedding related shit in the upcoming months. I haven't asked you before.
She'll do it. She'll do it.
Yeah, I hope so.
She doesn't know it yet, but
she doesn't know yet. And also, I am about to come to a reckoning, which ties in with today's topic of whether or not I want to make book 3 a shelved novel that I am going to resurrect or to keep going in the arc that I am in now. That is something that I am hoping to decide as I am in my wedding fantasia era that is coming up very quickly. So I'm getting married in about 3.5 months, which is terrifying. I've done it before. So we're going to be talking about what are known as sometimes trunk novels or shelved novels, books that you start with the best of intentions, and then for whatever reason, you walk away from either because you need to or because you want to, because something else is out there that is, shinier, more interesting. The note I wrote down for myself was that just like opinions, every writer's got at least one trunk shelved novel, or more than one.
Often more, yeah.
Often many. And just like opinions, some of these are trash and some of them are actually correct or mostly correct. So we kind of wanted to talk about what we've done, but also the reasons why we walked away from books, why some of them keep bothering us. And some of them are just really fucking embarrassing that we were never going to go back to. So I'm going to come out with this proclamation. When it comes to writing, the idea that winners never quit is complete and utter bullshit. You can always leave.
Yeah. And it's just like, we've all picked up novels that we were excited to read, and we get to a certain percentage in and we're just not enjoying it anymore. It's okay to DNF that novel. It's okay to put it down and not go back to it. And the same holds for writing a novel. At some point you may not be as passionate about it anymore. Or any number of reasons. It's just not working. This is if you're doing trad pub, you may stop writing a book because there's no market for it. Yeah. So, there's any number of reasons.
Yeah. And I'll just point out for the benefit of people who are not in total bookish spaces that DNF, and when I say that, Mom, you're somebody who has told me that you don't understand all the acronyms. So DNF means mother did not finish. So also shout out to my dad who sent me a lovely note to say that he is one of our listeners. It was out of nowhere. I did not respond to him. Thank you, Father. You emailed me when I was in trial, and I really enjoyed reading that email in the courtroom because I absolutely fucking needed it at that moment. Thank you, Father. Your good vibes saved me from $250 sanctions. Thank you.
That's very nice.
Yes.
And thank you, Meagan's dad, for being a listener. I appreciate it.
Yes. Yeah. Look, they can feel really embarrassing. Like, I had this great idea that I loved. It was my beautiful baby. I swaddled it. I, patted its fevered brow, and I dreamed the impossible dream, with this baby. And then one day I woke up and was like, my fucking ugly baby. I'm sorry, you're going to the orphanage. I've had plenty. And some of these were based on problems that I think were with genre, where there was a real problem with genre. And it was just so hard. And I'm going to talk about, obviously we're going to talk about these things, but the problem was so large that I could not overcome it. And some of them were things where I was just like, this problem is fixable, but I just don't feel like it right now.
Yep, for sure.
And some of them, like at some point I was like, I don't enjoy writing anymore. Like, this is making me hate writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, sometimes it's something like you could say, I've got another idea that I want more, I want to work on more. I'm just going to put this to one side, press pause, come back to it. Other ones you're going to put in the grave. Maybe you'll resurrect them, but, it's just like, bye, bitch. And sometimes you need to have somebody else's opinion, which is something else I'm going to touch on, because you might think it's a bad idea. Maybe the market doesn't think it's a bad idea. You just don't have the attitude right now to do it. So it's not sometimes the problem is actually you and not the
That's
idea.
right.
I thought we could do some real confessions, like
Sure.
BLF after dark.
Insert after dark sound. So back a couple years ago, when I was still querying, I felt like I was getting very close to the end of querying for this particular novel, and I had started another one. And what I was thinking, I would try another genre. And before I started writing kind of more, I guess, literary thrillers is what I like to call them, I actually wrote like fantasy. So that I've said before, like I've been writing my entire life. And most of that time when I was a kid, when I was a teenager, when I was a young adult, I wrote fantasy. And it was all really bad fantasy. And so now that I feel like I'm a better writer. I hope that I am. I felt like, I'm going to go back and I'm going to tackle a fantasy novel. And this will be something completely different than what I'm querying right now. And I'll see if I have some luck with that. And I had this idea that had been rolling around in my head, and it was based on an Irish legend. And I thought, I'm going to take this kind of small Irish legend and I'm going to turn it into a novel. And I was about halfway through that novel when I got an offer of representation from an agent. And so on the call, she asked me, and every agent will ask you this when you're on the call, what else are you working on? And so I told her, I've got this fantasy novel and I explained why I was writing a fantasy novel kind of outside the genre that I was querying in. I explained the novel to her. I gave her the pitch, and she said, yeah, I don't want that novel. So fair enough. She was looking to me for thriller novels. So fair enough. And I put that novel aside so that I could focus on thrillers. And so that's what I did. I will now tell you that, newsflash here, in December, my agent and I parted ways. And so I am unagented currently.
Back in the trenches with me.
Back in the trenches. Back in the trenches.
It's
It's
we're going to be singing World War I, kind
That's
of
right.
songs together
right.
very soon. Pack up your troubles in your old kit bag and smile, smile, smile. Yes.
And it's not bad being back in the trenches, actually. After having done it once, there are no mysteries left to this process, right?
You also have ins with people. You are having people refer you to other agents because you have some cachet in that you were formerly agented. And also, I will add, chose to leave your agent, which I
yes.
would posit is less of a stain upon your talent and your character. It is, as opposed to, sometimes for better or worse, whether or not it's actually real. Sometimes people think, oh, well, they got trapped. And, mostly it's like, look, the agent's going another way and we're going off topic. I understand that.
Yeah. And I don't want to drag the topic too far afield, but yes, there is a saying that, no agent is better than a bad agent. And that also applies to no agent is better than an agent that just doesn't fit anymore.
Yes.
And so, and that's what I realized. And I suspect that's probably what she realized also. And so, we parted ways amicably, and so somewhere out there is the agent that, is a better fit for me. So,
but no dream agent, as we have often.
No dream agent.
No
there are
dream
no dream
agents.
So it's very possible that I'll pick that novel up again. I set that novel down because I needed to be focused on the genre that I was brought in for. I'm no longer held to that. It's another reason that I'm writing a horror novel, right?
I'm gonna butt in again. I have heard part of this at a conference, and I loved it. And I am not a
Thank you.
fantasy reader, and I loved it.
You know
So
what was funny is the facilitator that was reading it had such a horrible time on pronouncing the Irish
I
names
know it was really
because I
funny.
had not provided a pronunciation guide, and I have no idea why I didn't do that, but she just kept stumbling every time she hit a name, and there were a lot of names in this opening chapter. Every time she hit it, she'd have to ask me, and yeah.
I really like this book. If you can bring this book back into the world, I'd like it.
Yeah, I might do it. It's crossed my mind. I'm really focused on this other thing right now, so maybe someday,
Okay.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you?
Oh,
Now
Lord.
that I completely hijacked the conversation.
So I've spoken a couple of times about the historical romance novel, the Regency romance novel that I started to write during the Oxford University extension course that I was taking in creative writing. And I thought, okay, I love Regency romance. I read a lot of Regency romance. I can totally do this. And then I started writing, and I realized very quickly that reading and writing a particular genre are very different skills.
Mhm.
You can also be
Mhm.
a person who is perfectly good or, competent at writing and not be able to write in a genre, no matter how much you like it.
Sure.
And
Sure.
I realized that I was writing historical romantic fiction, which is not historical romance. We've talked about it before. This was, slightly sweeping in the number of years that it was covering. There was more than just a heroine and a hero, a male main character, a female main character. There was, a big sweeping backdrop. There was, disappointment within families of being second children. The book is called
Mhm.
Spare Parts, and it's the conundrum of being the second child, right? Especially being a second son. And for the male main character, he is the second son of a second son. So he's never
Mm.
had anything expected of him at all.
Yeah.
But both his father and his older brother are like classic failed sons, and they croak in order. And now he's somebody who's got kind of like a bit of a heroic soul, but he's always just been like, nobody ever expects anything of me. So what do I do now? And he's been brought up in England, but he's this Scottish, very minor nobility kind of thing. Like a country I know jack shit about. Like, what the fuck? I've been into this girl, but I can't have her because she's my best friend's little sister. And she's eclipsed by her, majestic, extremely naughty older sister. And these two like afterthoughts coming together. And I'm like, this is not romance.
Mhm.
This is not romance at all. I reread some of this while I was getting ready to record this, and I'm like, there is something here. And
Yeah.
in my writing circle, people, the people in my group ask me about like, what are you going to do with Kitty and Duncan? Like, come on, they're great. I'm like, I know, but I don't know what to do with them. And because I'm not a historical fiction writer, but I will point out that Kitty and Duncan are in this greater arc. Kirk is going to laugh because he knows about this, that we call the greater Melaverse. So, full confession time. So, very long time ago, over a decade ago, I came up with a fictional character that I used on a forum, internet forum. Kirk aided and abetted me in this. We had so much fun doing this. And I had a fake blog. People were really incensed by the goings on in the fake blog, and the fake blog leaked into the forum, and it was all crazy and weird and bizarre. And I couldn't stop thinking about these characters. Like over a decade passed. And one day I woke up and I wrote to Kirk. I said, I think it's time. And I resurrected these characters on the forum, but also I resurrected the writing from this character, Melissa. And instead of doing a blog, I did it was kind of like, it was like an online journal, but it was really me writing myself back into being able to write. And I did this very long, I mean, when I say very long, it's like 30,000 words, like chapter or blog post, whatever you want to call it, where
Huh?
she goes to her beloved's ancestral home up in Scotland and she learns about the history of his family. And there are these 8 generations in his family. And at that point, I'm like, I have an entire series. And I plotted out every single one of these generations. And this was one of them. And I loved them so much. And then I thought, like, what do I do? Because I can't write this, but I love these people. And I'm going to talk about the other thing I thought about doing with them was taking them after the interactions in this novel that I had thought about and putting them slightly after she moves up there. And this is shelved novel number 2, Gothic fiction.
Wow.
Yeah. And like, what happens when it's Regency era Britain, slightly sheltered, but not completely sheltered, intellectual blue stocking miss moves up to the Highlands and gets into this Jacobean pile of a house. And everybody has always said it's haunted, but then she meets the ghost, and how is the ghost going to direct the lives of the people who live in this house and what's going to happen? And I didn't actually map it out, but I loved so much not only the Regency era character, but also her great grandmother-in-law, kind of like Jacobean era relative who was dark and awful and like bleh. And I was like, I want to write this. And then I was like, I don't know how to write this. And then I put it aside. So there is a theme here of these 2 novels. Like, I don't know how to write these people.
Yeah, sure. No, and that's perfectly valid. Sometimes you need to, work on your craft with other novels before you're ready to tackle something, something really sweeping like that. Right. So who knows? I mean, it sounds like you might pick these up someday.
I just want to go back to them. And because other people are like, whatever happened to these people? They won't leave. Melissa will not leave me alone.
Yeah. No, they sound fun. They
But
sound like really
Mel,
fun characters to write.
I
Yeah.
will
And
before I move on, I will say that Kirk had so much to do with the bringing Melissa into the universe. So thank you, Kirk.
it was a lot of fun. It was a fun troll.
Yes, yes. What about you? Any others that you want to, confess to?
So probably over the last year, I probably set a good 3 aside. And, a couple of them, it just wasn't working. I had a great outline. And as I wrote against that outline, I just felt like this isn't interesting enough. And so, I had a couple thrillers, when you're writing a thriller, like it needs to be a page turner, right? And so, I was getting to the point where I was just like the pages aren't turning. I'm writing words and things are happening. It's just not coming together. These are novels that I may come back to at some point if I ever kind of think of ideas that like, oh, here's what it was missing. Here was the missing ingredient. But yeah, nothing. I certainly don't have like an epic timeline,
8
generational. Yeah, generations of, that kind of would fit squarely into novels. I tend to write standalone novels. Although I will say that the first book that I queried that I actually did land an agent with, I started writing a sequel to that, knowing fully well that you should not write a sequel until a publisher, picks up your book and says, yes, they'd like a sequel. This is in TradPub. So, but I just like, I really felt that inside. Like I felt this sequel. It felt so good to me. And so I did start writing that. And the reason I set that one aside is because I came to my senses and said, I need to be putting efforts into a book that, we can go on sub with behind this first book that I've got. So that sequel may actually get written someday if I could sell the damn first book.
You will.
Because I've got a great outline for it. I've got great ideas for it. I really want to write it. and someday I will.
I know you will. Oh, yeah, yeah. I have one more to talk about.
Okay.
So this is the one that is bothering me. The other ones, it's kind of like, and I didn't mention it, but there is actually another book in the greater Melaverse, that was written as part of the 500,000 word extravaganza, that is.
You should query that one.
Oh, yeah, 100%. But there is actually a book inside of that, like an actual standalone book. I thought about it. That's about 60,000 words. That's about a wedding, about friends and former partners coming back together to celebrate somebody's wedding. And when everybody's been so intertwined over, well over a decade, and love and hate and being brought into close proximity with each other. But I I don't know, that one bothers me, but even more, it is the shortest one of the abandoned that bothers me the most. The 7,000 word, I'm gonna call it like contemporary fiction, like satire. It has a title, a working title, Incognito Mode. It is about the fallout of a dating game show that is also about politics. I will not give the name of the game show because I fucking love it. It's one of those things that popped into my brain and I was like, that's so smart. Somebody might steal that motherfucking title, so I'm not going to mention it. But it's, essentially
It's a
if
great title.
Thank you. What if you took Love is Blind and you crossed it with, like, if you're old, you'll remember Crossfire, where you had a Republican and a Democrat on at the same time. So if you took 12 Democrats, six of whom these people are all like cisgendered straight people, because that's what dating game shows are like. I mean, let's just be real. Especially this is one like based in 2016, so it's got to be straight.
Sure.
And six female Democrats, six male Democrats, six male Republicans, six female Republicans. Put them in a house together for a month. Who's going to get to the altar on the day of the presidential election in 2016. We all know what happened then.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was like, oh, this is actually a really good idea. And it's not just about politics. It's not just about a relationship. It's also about internet culture, internet forum culture in particular. It's about immigration. It's the main character is now who has become America's villain by abandoning America's sweetheart, not at the altar, but after the altar, on their honeymoon in Paris for reasons
Wow.
unknown, and then gone into hiding for essentially a decade, falls in love with a woman from Canada and wants to bring her to America. So we have immigration right now, extremely topical in America. And also, what happens if this person does a whoopsie and outs themselves on the internet? And now the lens of America and Canada and these sort of minor markets that have also picked up this show back in 2016, like they all kind of forgot about him. Like he was kind of like a punchline for a long time, but nobody knows what happened. He's now bubbled up again, and his fiance has no idea that she's marrying America's greatest love rat of the past decade. Everything falls apart.
Why are you setting this aside? This sounds amazing.
Well, I put this on the internet. I put an excerpt of it on Blue Sky in the Whip Snips thing, and people are like, I would read this like right now.
Yeah.
And I had not thought about this as being book 3. I've written 2 chapters of this, and I've mentioned it before, like I think it's starting in the wrong place. That could be true, but I actually think this might be book 3.
Yeah, cool.
I kind of think it's great. It's writing as well, like very outside of my wheelhouse. I've only ever written from a female protagonist point of view, and this is a male protagonist.
Meagan.
Yes.
Meagan.
Yes.
This is the abandoned book episode.
Yes. I
It
abandoned
sounds
it.
like you're going to write it. It sounds like you're going to write it,
This is
though.
it. And then we can talk about why did we shelve these books, right? So sometimes you have to say, like, it is okay to come back to.
Yes.
You can
Yes.
fall out of love.
How long did you abandon this book for?
Oh, a year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, almost a year, I'd say.
For some reason, I thought this was a more recent book. I thought you were going to tell me like a month and a half.
Oh, no,
Okay.
no. This started as a, in my writing circle, as just something I was working on, kind of as a prompt. And I was like, oh, this is fun. And then I wrote
now it's back. And now it's back.
Well, I say that now. Kirk, like, check in with me in a few months. I'll probably be writing another one in the, Jenny Gregory verse. I don't
There
fucking
is
know.
no rule that says you cannot pick an abandoned book back up and then abandon it again and then pick it up again.
No.
You can do this ad nauseum.
Yeah. And, and there are, we were talking about, like, how did you know, like, it was time to move on? For that one, it was, I sat down to write chapter 3 and there was nothing in the tank. Like, zero. I started to write it and I hated the chapter that was coming. And I said, fuck this, moving on, thank you, next. And it just didn't happen. I couldn't think of it. But it's come back. The other ones I have not felt that with. So, and maybe I didn't know how to write it then. But now I think I know how to write it. Yeah.
Right on. Right on. Do it.
WRITE on. Right on. Sorry. That's my dad joke. That's my dad joke for the episode.
Thanks, Dad.
You're the dad here. So, what do you think that these books have taught you, if anything, about who you are as a writer, or like what you can do, what you can't do?
Well, no book is wasted. No words are wasted. Every time you sit down at the keyboard and you write, you're becoming a better writer. And so if you abandon a book 2,000 words in, you are 2,000 words the better writer. You know what I mean? So it's not we talked about failure at the beginning of the podcast. It does not mean you are a failure, because you are still getting something out of this. A writer writes, right? And so whether you put 2,000 words in, whether you put 65,000 words in before abandoning it, you're always getting something out of it. The other thing too is, a lot of times you can kind of salvage parts of books that you've set aside. So you can kind of treat it like a junkyard, and you can go in and you can pull scenes in. I just talked about how I'd been writing this book and I switched genres. And so I've been able to use about 25% of that book so far that I had already written in a different way. And I had to, change a few things around, but it's never wasted.
Yeah. The magnum opus, I've stolen stuff like very liberally. It's my stuff. I can take it. And even when it's not words directly, but just kind of like vibes, especially the one that I keep thinking about is this concept of, like, sometimes life, these perfect moments, they're just like lightning in a jar. And you think about these perfect frozen in amber times, and you can keep like tapping at them and thinking about who you were in that moment, and you can look at it and it's beautiful, but you're never going to be that person again. And and even though you can use it as inspiration for yourself, or like, kind of draw upon it, all it is just it's just a curio. And that's something in the big book of Mel, that she talks about a lot. And I've used that to kind of inform book 2, even though it's written in this third person simple past. You get the sense that this is somebody who is looking back at her past, at something that was very rare. So you can use your stuff for all kinds of inspiration. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to do a perfect resurrection, and it doesn't even need to be a Frankenstein. It can just be, just a feeling, or, a moment.
Oh, I've taken parts of abandoned books that I had written when I was not as good a writer as I am now. But I've taken those parts of scenes or maybe even entire scenes and there's bones there.
Mhm.
The craft may not be as good, but there's bones there.
Yeah.
And you can play editor at that point and bring it up to par.
We were always writers.
That's right.
That's the reality, is that we were always writers and we didn't
That's right.
recognize it at the time, or we weren't like, our brains were ahead of our craft.
Sure.
So,
And I fully expect that 10 years from now, I will pull a piece of writing that I did, this year, and I'll go, oh, that's really not up to snuff. Let me just, polish that up and edit that up and, make it look like a real writer wrote it. And then, I can use it for
oh,
something else.
fuck off. Fuck off. You are a real writer. I mean, come on.
We are real writers.
We
Yes.
are, artistes and authors.
But future me 10 years from now is a real Ponzi asshole. So that's why, yeah.
I'm going to pretend this is true. But yeah, having known Kirk for almost 20 years, I find this extremely hard to believe. But if this is what he is aiming for,
Yeah.
I will respect that. And if that is the route that he's on, more power to you. Be an asshole.
Thank you for your support.
You've always got it. So here's a question for you. Do some books exist to teach you how to write the next one? Like, could you, like, something that you have gotten really far on, do you think it taught you anything more than, like, that wasn't right, or that's not my genre, or I could do better, or I suck? Is there anything beyond it? And you can say, no, Meagan, you have summed that up perfectly. I could not improve upon your synopsis, and I will only pat myself on the back slightly.
Oh, well, I go back to No Word is Wasted. And so in hindsight, yes, there are some books that exist for nothing more than to have taught me a lesson. But I like to think that at the time I was writing that book, I did have a serious goal in mind. And it just didn't pan out. And that's okay. Because honestly, we talked about this a little bit earlier. It's like putting down a book that you're not enjoying. You start out, like, nobody goes out and buys a book that they know they're not going to enjoy unless, it's a college textbook. But if you find that you are not enjoying that book, you set it aside. And it's the same thing with writing. Is you may have gone in for all the right reasons. Now you're not having fun, or there's a problem structurally with it, or you discover, as we talked about earlier too, that you're just not up to that challenge quite yet, and it's okay to set that aside. So yes, there are some books that exist to teach us a lesson. They didn't start out that way; they do now, and that's not a bad thing.
No, and I think your analogy to DNFing is such a good one. And also, if you're out there and you're listening, you're writing, and you're not feeling it with either the book that you're writing right now or something that you've put to one side, you are in a huge community of people. As we said at the start of this, most writers have at least one. You are not alone, and you are not a failure if you can't finish it. And sometimes finishing the book just so you can finish it, what's it really teaching you? Especially if there's something else that you really want to do. This is, for most of us, we're doing this for ourselves, at least at the beginning. So why torture yourself? Write the book you want to write.
For sure.
Yeah. So, talking about people who are finishing books and then querying them, let's talk some hot goss.
Let's do it.
Question. Okay. Should authors be able to talk about their rejection letters in public?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, as always, there's nuance, right? I think it's really tacky and really low class to go on to take to social media and say, like, name names. This agent so-and-so said this about my book, and they obviously don't understand anything about the business or something like that, right? Like, you can rant. And
Sure.
I think for the most part, leave names out of it, unless maybe they gave you really nice feedback, even if it wasn't like the feedback you wanted.
Yeah.
Like, I would have no problem naming names in that
No,
case.
I have some people I'd be very happy to name names about
Yeah.
who gave
Yeah.
me some great feedback while they were rejecting me.
So
So,
why do you ask, Meagan?
okay. Well, unfortunately, the original thread, this is Threads. We're going back to Threads. Laura B, you know that we have been very sadly disappointed about Threads not bringing it recently. Threads brought it, but the original thread was deleted before I could see it. But there was detritus and kind of breadcrumbs that were hanging around.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
there was an author who had been querying, from what I understand, and said, I got some really shit feedback in my rejection. It was awful. This agent, and I can't tell exactly if the author named names, but
Mm-hmm.
was specific enough that their mention of, basically said this feedback was shit, made a couple of agents very uncomfortable, while at the same time other authors said, yeah, that's some fucking bullshit. That is not acceptable. So there was a divide
Yeah.
between authors saying and actually I think they started from a very similar position where this is a very solitary pursuit and it is good to be in community.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So authors saying this can feel really shit and I want to feel supported in this moment. Agents saying we get that, but you don't understand the hate that agents get. Now, Kirk and I are in a private Instagram group where there is an agent who is in that group, who is a very lovely individual, and we've been learning lots of really interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
And she has really pulled back the curtain on the amount of really bizarre stuff that she gets
Yeah. So
sent.
when agents tell you that they get hateful, nasty, just psychotic bullshit in their inboxes, believe them.
Absolutely. We
We
have
have seen
seen
some
them.
shit.
We have seen some crazy ass shit
Yeah.
now. And I'm not going to say who the agent that we're in this community with is, but she is so sharing and kind and lovely and
Mm-hmm.
upbeat, and she really gives back to the community beyond this group. And she's got a great attitude about these weirdos. But if it were me, I'd be like, maybe I just need to step aside. Like, I can't deal with this kind of
Yeah, I
bizarreness.
don't know how agents deal with this. By the way, I'm gonna take a quick trip into the weeds here because this is a question that comes up all the time. And so I'm going to settle this question once and for all. In Query Tracker, yes, there is a maybe pile.
Hmm.
Okay, carry on.
Yes. No, there is. There is absolutely a
Yes.
maybe pile. And you can kick yourself off of maybe pile into no. But,
Yes, exactly.
be good. But so where does the line fall between I got hurt and ow, I'm going to hurt you?
Hmm.
And it's, again, with the nuance, very unpopular these days. But I think there is a line that can be drawn between I want to feel validated in this moment of vulnerability. And especially when you're an author and you feel that you don't have a lot of power when you're querying in TradPub. And agents who appear but may not always have a lot of power saying, when you make fun of us or you attack us, even when you don't say our names, it makes us feel diminished and vulnerable too. And,
Yeah.
and that's a really important conversation. I think that maybe is being overlooked in this dialogue, or not even dialogue, like people kind of talking past each other, that everybody's feeling exposed and vulnerable. At the same time, I will say, authors, and I will die on this hill, authors should be allowed to talk about feeling hurt or ignored or belittled
Hmm.
by agents without naming names or without bringing in enough kind of identifying information.
So look, there is a power dynamic at play here, right? I don't know how to say this any better, but agents are gatekeepers to the publishing industry. There are more writers out there than there are agents. And so there just is a power dynamic. So there's a lot of different things going on there, right? So, one of them is, as authors, we kind of have to accept that there is that power dynamic.
Mhm.
You really don't want to piss off the agent community as a whole. Now, I will caveat that by saying, if there is an agent out there who got their feelings hurt because you said something very specific, maybe you dodged a bullet then with that particular agent. Don't query them. Maybe you dodged a bullet. If, on the other hand, you've got a lot of agents that are saying, dude, this is not cool,
Yeah.
you may just be shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah. Again, the problem may be you.
Right, right. I do have a solution for all of this, though, and it's not an ideal solution because, hey, we all should be able to be out there, sharing with the wider Blue Sky or Threads community or whatever. But this goes back to another episode we did on your support systems,
Mhm.
your writing communities, right?
Yeah.
Your little, I hate to use this term, whisper networks.
Yeah.
Everybody's got kind of not everybody, but if you don't have a group of writers that you can just vent your spleen to, you should try to find that group of writers, because what you have to say may be much better said in a group of 5 of your close writer friends
Yeah.
than to the millions of people on
Oh,
Threads.
yeah. And you may not think that people will notice your thread, but the
Yeah.
algorithm is hungry and it
Yeah.
will come and find you.
Yeah.
So don't
The
think that you're
algorithm
safe.
loves drama.
Absolutely. You might be safer on Blue Sky, but on Threads, you are not much like in Jaws, nobody's safe there out in the water. You could get sucked up. And I see it every day when I'm looking around on Threads, hating myself and looking for Hot Goss. People who don't think that anybody's going to pay attention because only like maybe 5 people have ever liked any of their posts.
Mhm.
They say something that the algorithm goes, huh. And all of a sudden they're the main character. And nobody wants to be the main character on a platform for a day. And especially if you're a writer at the beginning of their career. I'm not saying don't think these things, don't share these things, but think about the networks that you are going to share them in. There are some that are safer to share in than others. There's also my big list of doom where I write all sorts of things that make me
Mhm.
angry, some of which I share with other people, but not all of them. I do think that agents behaving badly is something that should be shared. Some of these are not bad behaviors at all. In fact, I'd probably say at least half of them, or if not more, are not actual bad behavior. It's just people kind of misconstruing things. But the genuinely bad behavior, and it does exist, should be shared. But be careful, understand DMs are a thing, big
Yeah.
smile, and understand who you're sharing them with. Find your people. We've talked, go back in our archives and listen to our one about writing communities. It's not that long ago. Create the networks that you need. And we are, even though Kirk and I are cynical old fuckers, but we're also nice people. You can find people not quite as amazing as us, but also good people in the writing community. People are so. I was talking last night to somebody who is thinking about writing. They had written a novel when they were very young, and that person's thinking about coming back to writing. And they were worried about, hooking in, like, what do I do? I don't know. I might want to be indie. And I said, these people are wonderful people. You will find people. So if you need to talk about this, yeah, go ahead on Threads, but understand the risks of it. If you're not naming names, I might give you a like, but, also realize that some people are going to think that you suck. And maybe that's an agent, in which case you might not want them anyway. But, agents also understand if you are listening. If you are listening and you rep my genre or Kirk's, we love you. And this is not directed to you, but also understand that even though you can feel attacked, you also are a gatekeeper, as Kirk said. I'm putting the blame on Kirk. So if we
I'll
feel
take it.
good in this struggle, we are united, power to the people. But understand that sometimes we're going to feel a little confused and a little attacked. And some of us are better expressing that frustration than others. And sometimes people just suck. And you're right that these authors do suck. Not all of, I personally do not suck. Kirk also does not suck. Please represent us if you're our dream agent, which doesn't exist.
Yes.
So, you know, I feel like I exposed a lot of myself without taking off any clothes tonight. Um, uh, but next week, I think I've twisted maybe Kirk's arm. TBD. This might change. Kirk's arm into possibly talking about writing and social media because I've been thinking a lot. I know. We're not going to touch the third rails. There are many third rails. There are third, fourth, fifth, 18th, 25th rails involved.
Yes. My love of social media is well documented.
Yeah, ditto. But also, unfortunately, necessary. And I thought we could talk a little bit about how, as writers who have resisted it, how we've come to understand what its uses are, how to exploit it, and how to keep it at arm's length to some extent, and not buy into the drama. And maybe that's just because we're old. I don't know, but I feel like I've come to some level of peace with it.
I have not.
Fight the good fight!
I continue to resist the board.
Fight the powers that be. And I would just like to give another shout out to Christy, who is listening, and gave us another wonderful comment on Spotify. Thank you so much. And,
Thank
this is
you,
me.
Christy.
Thank you so much. And also to Laura B., who I've mentioned earlier, who said that our last episode really kind of kicked her butt into gear about what was going wrong with the opening of her book. Thank you, Laura. Super friend of the show. Also,
Yeah, I love to hear that so much,
it
too.
was really great.
That makes me happy.
Yeah, she was walking and listening to the show.
That made my entire day.
I know.
To see that. That was great.
It was really great. Yeah. Thank you, Laura. Also, thank you again for all of your amazing beta reader comments. And, you can be like Laura and Christy, and you can be like Angela, and you can be like Pam. And you can comment on our show wherever you can find us. We're on all the major podcast platforms. We are also on several, but not all, social media platforms. We are on Blue Sky, where we are most active. We are on Instagram occasionally, Threads, unfortunately. Maybe after next week, we might be, maybe branching out to somewhere else. Who knows? Not the bad place.
Nope. It is dead to us forever.
You can also visit us at our website, badlitfriends.com. We are Badlit Friends everywhere, which I should have said before. You can email us at badlitfriends@gmail.com. Send us bribes. You send me an email if you want to send me a gift. I will give you an anonymous address to send it to. I accept gift baskets.
Perfect.
Especially from Harry and David. So, but until next time, we will see you then.
Bye.